He trained for years, gave his blood, sweat, and soul to the game. But the moment he chose to stand up for justice, everything he worked for was ripped away. In front of thousands of fans, the cheers turned to silence, and his seat on the bench became a symbol of punishment. What no one expected was how that silence would shatter, and who would break it. This wasn't just a game. It was a fight for dignity, equality, and truth. The question is, how far would he go to be heard? He was the kind of athlete people admired, not just for his speed, his strength, or the records he broke, but for the discipline and character that shone through every time he stepped onto the field. From sunrise runs to late-night training, his life was built on determination and sacrifice. To the crowd, he was a star. To his teammates, a leader. But beneath the roar of applause, he carried something heavier than any trophy. The weight of watching injustice unfold off the field, in streets and neighborhoods that looked like his own. He had always believed that sports were about unity, about standing shoulder to shoulder, no matter your background. Yet as the season began, subtle tensions rose, whispers of what would happen if he spoke his mind. He didn't know it yet, but the very game he loved was about to test not his athletic skill, but his courage to stand alone. The season was in full swing, and the stadiums were packed with cheering fans. But beneath the noise and bright lights, something was shifting. Outside the gates, protests filled the streets, voices crying out against injustice, demanding change. He felt those cries in his chest like an echo of his own. And one day, he decided silence was no longer an option. When the anthem played before the game, instead of standing tall as he always had, he lowered himself onto one knee. The stadium went quiet. Cameras zoomed in. Some fans gasped. Others booed. To him, it wasn't disrespect. It was a plea for justice. Yet within hours, headlines twisted the moment. Commentators called it unpatriotic, and sponsors whispered about pulling out. By the next game, the punishment came. His name was missing from the starting lineup. He sat on the bench while teammates jogged onto the field, the same teammates who once looked to him for leadership, now avoiding his gaze. It wasn't injury, it wasn't performance, it was protest. And everyone knew it. The whispers grew louder. He was labeled a distraction, a problem, a threat to the team's image. Strangers sent hate mail. Security warned him about threats outside the stadium. The weight of it all pressed down, but he refused to bow to fear. Still, the silence from those around him cut the deepest. Coaches who once praised him avoided speaking his name. Teammates who shared locker rooms walked past without a word. Each game, he sat. Each anthem, he knelt. The boos got louder, the isolation heavier. And yet the cameras kept coming back to him, capturing a man alone against a system determined to break him. But what no one expected was that someone with more power than all of them was watching closely. And the moment that person decided to act would turn this silent standoff into something far bigger than a game. The night was thick with tension. Another game, another anthem. He dropped to one knee, and this time the boos drowned out everything. Chants of "bench him" filled the arena, fans waving signs that branded him a traitor. His heart pounded, not from fear, but from the crushing weight of knowing he was standing or kneeling alone. The coach's eyes burned holes through him. The media cameras zoomed in, ready to spin the image into another storm. His teammates shifted uncomfortably, some staring at their shoes, others sneaking glances as if afraid of guilt by association. For a moment, he wondered if this would be his last game. His career, his reputation, everything he had fought for, reduced to silence and jeers. And then it happened. The owner of the team, a man known for his wealth, his influence, and his carefully guarded image, rose from the stands. Step by step, he walked toward the field, his presence enough to hush even the loudest voices. The cameras swung to follow him, every eye locked on what would happen next. The athlete's chest tightened. Was this the end? Would this man, the one who controlled his future, deliver the final blow? But instead, the owner lowered himself down, pressing one knee into the ground beside him. The silence that followed was deafening. Shock rippled through the stadium. Fans froze mid-chant. Reporters dropped their scripts. A symbol of power and privilege had just chosen sides, and the entire world was watching. What began as punishment had just turned into something unstoppable. The stadium never felt the same after that night. The image of the owner kneeling beside him spread like wildfire across televisions, newspapers, and millions of screens online. What was meant to silence him had instead amplified his voice. The same fans who booed began to question, to wrestle with what they had just witnessed. Conversations erupted in locker rooms, living rooms, and boardrooms. For the athlete, it wasn't victory. It was validation. The fear of losing everything had nearly crushed him, but in that moment he realized his stand had never truly been about the game. It was about dignity, about lives cut short, about voices that went unheard for too long. The backlash didn't vanish overnight. The threats, the headlines, the whispers in the hallways, they remained. But so did something stronger, hope. His protest had forced people to look, even if they didn't want to. And in the silence of that kneel, a truth became impossible to ignore, that justice isn't won in comfort, but in sacrifice. He carried that weight with pride, knowing the fight was far from over, because his story wasn't just about one athlete or one protest. It was about a nation still struggling to face its reflection. It was about the millions who still kneel, march, and speak, despite the cost. The question that lingers is this: how many more will it take before the world not only hears, but finally listens?